with my wish.
Yeah, Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. My wish. The lover has to keep the wish of the beloved. My wish for my lovers is as follows. 1. Do not shirk your responsibilities. 2. Attend faithfully to your worldly duties, but keep always at the back of your mind that all this is Baba's. 3. When you feel happy, think Baba wants me to be happy. When you suffer, think Baba wants me to suffer. 4. Be resigned to every situation and think honestly and sincerely. Baba has placed me in this situation. 5. With the understanding that Baba is in everyone, try to help and serve others. 6. I say with my divine authority that Baba is in everyone, try to help and serve others. 6. I say with my divine authority to each and all that whosoever takes my name at the time of breathing his last comes to me. So do not forget to remember me in your last moments. Unless you start remembering me from now on, it will be difficult to remember me when your end approaches. You should start practicing from now on. Even if you take my name only once every day, you will not forget to remember me in your dying moments. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Over to you, Karthik.
Thank you, Jai Baba. So we stopped at the end of the first foreword. Now the second foreword in Wayfarers is by Ramju Abdullah. And then the first three chapters actually, as referred in the liner, I mean in the website notes as well, there is a lot of coverage for what is, I mean, how to identify and how is a must different from mentally imbalanced person, or a clinical madness. So, and also the states of consciousness, especially in the planes, right? So I think let's explore this further. Maybe I will start with the first reading, and then we'll rotate as we get more people. Yeah, Jai Baba.
Okay. Jai Baba.
Avtar Meher Baba ki Jai. Forward Part 2 by Abdul Karim Ramju Abdullah, author of Sobs and Throbs, 1929, and Meher Baba, His Philosophy and Teachings, published in 1933. The usefulness of musts to humanity. It is as much as a privilege, it is as much a privilege as a pleasure to pen these few lines by way of introduction to this unique work by my friend and brother disciple, compiled with the characteristic research and perseverance of the West, and with a profound understanding of the dynamics of life as understood in the East. Whatever I say here is based upon my close and continuous contact with Meher Baba for the last 25 years, upon certain points dictated by him for the purpose of this foreword, and upon all that I have imbibed of his teachings from time to time during my exacting activities and intense industry under his direction in the diverse spheres of my business, social, and family life. God to man, and man back to God. That is the story, in a nutshell, of all that life has stood for since it started flickering in the depths of the unknown past with a flare up of light and love from time to time through perfect manifestations like Jesus the Christ. In order to appreciate both the short and long term aspects of life within the limited scopes of intellect, logic, and reasoning, it is necessary to study with an open mind the complexities that ultimately turn into the very simplicities of life as a whole. Facts must be faced unflinchingly, and established conventions must be eschewed in favor of convictions from freedom of thought and mind. The zero is equal to nothing, and yet the very fact of its non value makes it the important factor in arriving at valuations. Thus, if the figure 1 is taken to represent the unity and reality of God, and the cipher 0, the unreality of the material universe, we may add as many zeros, material universe, as we choose to the single figure 1, God, and so make combinations that have significance, such as 10, 100, a lakh, a crore, and so forth. In other words, the cipher 0 or the material universe in itself, or combined with others like itself, is nothing and means nothing, but when it has the figure 1, God, in front of it, the various combinations have distinct values. In the same manner, therefore, to be spiritually minded and to understand spiritual truths, matter and materialism need not be shunned or surrendered. In fact, for the manifestation of divinity, materialism is an absolute and unavoidable necessity. The immortality of men like Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, Christ, and Zoroaster depended upon the mortal coil they assumed and shed during certain brief periods in the history of mankind. They used matter to express their divinity and to carry out their divine missions. Essentially, spirituality includes materialism inasmuch as the existence of all matter depends upon the spirit. Shorn of spirit, matter could and would assume its original existence of nothing as nothing. An error that is equally common both in the East and the West is that of looking upon mind and matter as divided into two separate watertight compartments, as a result of which life itself is wrongly taken to be divided into two distinct categories, spiritual and material.
You
Man,
may read that sentence once again, because the original non-existence of nothing as nothing. You said existence of nothing. Okay.
oh, sorry. Okay. Uh, I'll start from the paragraph itself then.
Yes, yes.
Essentially, spirituality includes materialism inasmuch as the existence of all matter depends upon the spirit. Shorn of spirit, matter could and would assume its original non existence of nothing as nothing. An error that is equally common both in the East and in the West is that of looking upon mind and matter as divided into two separate watertight compartments, as a result of which life itself is wrongly taken to be divided into two distinct categories, spiritual and material. Man is as much material because of this of his body that is evolved purely out of matter, as he is spiritual on account of his mind that is the direct outcome of man's inherent divinity. The higher aspects of life can be as easily realized amidst the machine ridden West as amidst the lower animality in man that is found in abundance in the spiritual East. The simplest way for man to get nearer to God is to get nearer to those who have already achieved the cherished proximity to divinity and who have established direct contact with spirituality by transcending the limited scopes of ordinary understanding, reasoning, knowledge, and experience within which man has instinctively trapped himself and from which he finds it difficult to emerge because he always insists upon looking outside, be it for help and knowledge or for freedom and peace. It is more important to establish a sympathetic understanding of God intoxicated souls than merely to contact them physically. In other words, there is little merit in visiting a must out of idle curiosity or in criticizing his unconventional habits. The real thing is to serve these God intoxicated souls with love and humility and to strive to fathom the intrinsic purity of their inner life. The approach must be from one's own mind towards the must's mind and not from one's outer senses towards his superficial behavior. Now, the physical body of a man depends upon his subtle body, energy body, his subtle body upon his mind, and his mind, which is the nearest to his soul, is therefore the foremost channel through which God pours forth his divinity. This expression of the divinity of God through these channels is called Leela. The Leela of God, divinity in full play, is primarily concerned with the spread of his purity and love for the benefit of the world as a whole, for the expression and manifestation of his infinite power, bliss, knowledge, light, and love. God needs the purest mental channels, and the purest minds are those of the musts who have drowned themselves in their love for God, have gone beyond lust, anger, greed, avarice, and all other weaknesses that invariably stick around the mind of every man in greater or lesser amounts and in one shape or another until man is awakened to his true nature and to his real life. Once a mind succeeds in directing its energy towards the existence beyond the domain of intellect and begins to realize and experience the magnitude, the grandeur, and the novelty that are perceived and absorbed by the mind direct without bringing into use its ordinary faculties and without having recourse to the senses of the body, the person concerned becomes more and more unconcerned with his bodily requirements and surroundings. All his conscious energy is then naturally used in the course of his all absorbing inner life, leaving the body and its sustenance to its own subconscious energy and to the direct support from the very source of all energies, God. This is amply illustrated by the number of musts who, in spite of exposing themselves to extreme rigors of heat, cold, and rain, and enduring extraordinary physical hardships, still maintain themselves splendidly so that their bodies can and do withstand all these external abnormalities without illness and without fatigue. The goal of the musts being God, they get his super direct, the goal of the musts being God, they get his direct support even for the maintenance of their physical existence as long as it is required for their individual spiritual advancement and for the spiritual advancement of their surroundings. There are some musts whose minds have become so utterly pure that they become, in effect, the minds of God Himself, and through these channels, God's infinity directly. Though hiddenly, benefits the world at large, just as God's indirect hidden influence continuously benefits the whole creation. Such 100% musts or perfect maizubs, although dead to themselves and to the universe, and in spite of their apparently childlike, mad, and ghoulish state, provide a living, direct link between man and God. To serve, to touch, and to hear a perfect madzub is equal to a direct contact with God Himself. When the mind is absolutely void of all desires and thoughts and becomes free from all outside influences and connections, the functions of intellect and reasoning, though apparently lost or confused, are in fact transcended, and the unlimited spiritual domain is entered, where mind works directly without recourse to its ordinary faculties. Naturally, the words and actions of such transcended souls appear mostly to be void of reasoning and to be inconsistent with intelligence, the more so because their bodies are not under the control of reason but are kept alive by the infinite. Their bodies thus endure all kinds of circumstances with complete indifference to their environment and are uncared for by the musts themselves. Musts are therefore not only indifferent to their own physical existence and to the existence of others, but they also live as if absolutely detached from the world and its activities. It is not difficult to appreciate the inability of these lovers of God and God merged souls to pay attention to anyone or anything but to their divine beloved. If we compare them with ordinary men and women who, when deep in human love, forsake and forget food, sleep, and many other bodily needs. It will not, however, be equally easy to reconcile the contradiction that these pure souls are invariably found surrounded by dirt and filth, so much so that in 9 cases out of 10, they are dirt and filth personified. There is a story of a Mast who used to offer namaz prayers without performing the wuzu, ablutions. When he persisted in this practice, people began to raise objections on the grounds of the violation of the laws of Shariat, the disciplinary side of religion, and finally, they insisted that he should be made to perform the required ablutions. The Mast then started to perform the wuzu, but could never finish them in time and thus would miss the congregational prayers. When he was found missing at the end of prayers, people became all the more angry and began to look for him with a view to bring him to his senses. They found him sitting unconcerned near the water tank, merrily washing his liver, kidneys, etc., which he used to take out one by one and replace after a thorough wash. When he saw the people watching him, he got wild and cried out, "Confound your external cleanliness. I cannot achieve it sufficiently with all this dirt and filth inside me, and I say goodbye to your prayers from this day forth." It is well known that those who practice the science of yoga on a high level can and do cleanse the interior of their bodies as part of their regular exercises. The average man, engrossed in his own pursuits day in and day out, pays attention to the outward cleanliness of his body, which is full of dirt and filth inside, but he takes comparatively negligible notice of the dirt and filth of selfish thoughts surrounding his mind. There can be no two there can be no two opinions about the original material from which the human body is evolved in the womb and about the constant care and attention needed thereafter to keep all the openings of the human body neat and clean. Cleanliness, again, is commonly cared for as much for show as for itself, and it is also a question intimately connected with the aesthetics of sight. Man is apt to wink at dirt and filth as long as they can be kept out of sight, for out of sight is out of mind. If left to themselves, children would certainly prefer to remain dirty rather than transfer their energies from playfulness to cleanliness. If men could be as carefree as children and equally attracted to playing, every man would, like a child, need a nurse to keep him shipshape on the outside. A must whose mind is fully focused on the inner reality of life does have much in common with the life of an innocent child, just as in certain respects he bears an apparent resemblance to a madman. If the human mind can so easily identify itself with the human body that is the outcome of matter, there is then no reason why the mind of a must cannot identify itself with divinity, as in fact it does, irrespective of the condition of the outer shell of the physical body. With a clean body, one may not necessarily have a clean mind, and antithetically, a spiritually clean mind does not necessarily require a clean body. The fact is that the nature and habits of a man prior to his spiritual awakening do not necessarily change at the time of his inner awakening. Bodily habits, on the other hand, not only continue as a matter of course, but in many cases become intensified in degree and increased in frequency on account of the subsequent instinctive repetitions of almost automatic actions on the part of the God intoxicated souls. Musts, because their minds are wholly occupied with their inner experiences, are drawn to the line of least resistance in the details of their day to day life and are only amenable to that which requires the least conscious energy. For this very reason, they get easily excited when disturbed from their fixity of purpose or fixity of habits. Nothing could be more wrong and unjust than to presume that dirt and filth are necessary conditions for a mind to be awakened inwardly and to remain so. It would not make the slightest spiritual difference to a must if he could be tactfully persuaded to live in a sumptuous palace and induced to be helped like a child to remain neat and clean. In fact, taking care of and, so to say, nursing the bodily existence of such awakened minds out of love for God provides one of the finest opportunities for man to render service intrinsically and selflessly. The principal contribution of Masts to humanity is their matchless utility for the immediate betterment and the ultimate salvation of the world. This cardinal factor of the continuous and collective influence of all the Masts in the world for the betterment of all beings all over the world is more positive and more direct than the day to day influence of the sun that so very deeply affects our daily life. Compared with the light of love that radiates directly from these children of God for the good of all life on earth, the light of the sun is a mere indirect reflection of the real light of God, who is the source of all light and all love in existence. In spite of their repulsive surroundings and the individual idiosyncrasies that their own physical bodies alone undergo, the musts are, unlike many other beings and things, infinitely useful to their fellow beings. It is true that every being and thing is of some use, somewhere, sometime in creation for the maintenance of creation. Yet, there are things and beings whose existence is more for the sake of others than for themselves, and more for the general betterment of things than for their mere maintenance and sustenance. For the stability of a ship, a dead ballast is sometimes very necessary. Yet, a payload of corresponding weight, if available, is certainly preferable. There are people who, to a certain extent, rightly consider lunatics to be a burden to themselves and a burden to their fellow beings. In spite of that, it cannot be denied that these unbalanced minds indirectly provide a means of service of a very high order for others in the shape of asylums and hospitals that are maintained for such people. In the case of Mus, there's no question of the mind being unbalanced at all. On the contrary, the only balanced mind is that of a perfect Majzub, inasmuch as it completely ceases oscillating and vacillating once for all in the complete realization of its soul, which in other words means the reattainment of Godhood that was unknowingly lost for the very purpose of finding it again knowingly. All philosophy, spirituality, and mysticism might be summed up in what I once heard offhand from Baba in the early stage of my novitiate. Mind stopped is God. Mind working is man. Mind slowed down is must. Mind working fast is God. In the light of my understanding outlined here, the
No,
important
the
fact,
last
yeah,
line you read wrong. Mind
mi-
working fast is mad.
mind working fast is mad. What did I say? I said must. So,
God.
so, so I have this habit of reading ahead in my
Okay.
curiosity. So I have already read the line and then I'm slowly reading the voice. So yeah, sorry. Let me continue. In the light of my understanding outlined here, the important fact about musts is that unlike the insane, musts are not only no burden or dead weight to themselves and to others, but are perfect instruments for the continuous permeation of God's infinite love and blessings to all life all over the earth. Baba is widely known to have observed silence continuously since 1925, but few know that for more than 20 years he has also stopped using his pen, except for putting his signature whenever necessary, and therefore I feel all the more tempted to end this foreword with extracts from one of his letters to me in his own hand dated January 1926. There are many who are in the way, many who have experience, many who are yogis, but few who are perfect. Never speak ill of saints. They are the sign of truth and help to the world. My salutations to all those who love God, who are saints, yogis, bhaktas, and my namaskar to Sadgurus. All these are me in different forms. Okay. So I have only one question from this. So i- is it to be taken based on what at least we are reading till now that a Majzub and a Mas are the same? Because
Mazub is the Mazub. I think we can call that as the pinnacle of a mustwood.
okay,
So musts are on the way to be Mazubs or
because
beyond. That is Sadguru, but different levels below the level of Mazub. That is my perception. Once they are
okay,
Mazubs, they are totally immersed. Whereas musts of different, say, different musts are at different planes. Maybe we get more insight regarding this later.
I think so too. But
Yeah.
yeah, the way you are probably explaining it is closer to what it is. But we'll find out in the coming chapters.
Yes.
But the Matsub loses all contact with creation, right? So he's not able to deal with anything. So
Hmm.
which is pretty much the case of the must as well, as far as we understand now. But we'll find out.
No, no, no. Say Masop must to different levels or different must have some sort of a contact with the external world, and they do some awkward activities and all that.
Correct.
Even though they may look awkward for the general understanding, they are in action. Whereas
Correct.
a Masob, perfect Masob, I think he will be totally
Lost
non
to creation.
lost to creation.
Yeah. Okay. Mama, you want to read chapter 1?
Yes.
Okay. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Chapter 1, Spiritually Advanced Souls, an exemplary chapter, explanatory chapter, sorry. The contents of this chapter are based upon a series of dictations by Meher Baba, of which the majority were given out during December 1946 and January 1947. Each dictation, with its wealth of detail, was spelled out by Meher Baba through the medium of his alphabet board, and my work has been confined to weaving the threads of these original dictations into a formal pattern in which the mass of detail is presented in the most natural sequence. Since the dictation of Baba's original material, I have had the privilege of his guidance from time to time, and upon points that were not clear to me in the beginning, Baba has subsequently added much additional information, and finally he has checked the chapter word by word himself so that its present shape and contents include his final corrections. The subject is handicapped in its presentation to the Western reader by the sparse vocabulary in English for the different states of its spiritual experience, the different types of mass, the fact there is no conventional English word for must, and the different grades of spiritual aspirant. Nevertheless, in spite of the inevitable use of words from Sufi and Vedantic sources, the exposition that Baba lays before us is, for, for so vast a theme, basically simple and easy to follow. To begin with, he divides all spiritually advanced souls into five basic types: God merged, God intoxicated, God absorbed, God communed, God mad. One, God merged. A God merged soul is a mazub of the seventh plane in the state of the final fana. He is one who is drowned in God. His limited I is utterly annihilated, and he exists only in infinite bliss, infinite power, and infinite knowledge. He is not conscious of the infinite universe, of the finite universe, or his physical body, or of the lower six planes. He is simply conscious of himself as God. Number two, God intoxicated. All musts are God intoxicated. They are intoxicated by divine love. When anyone is intoxicated by alcohol or drugs, he enjoys this sensation as long as the intoxicant is in sufficient concentration in his tissues. He feels happy, cares a rap for anyone and anything, and has one dominant sensation of drunkenness, in which time, past, present, or future have practically no meaning. But as soon as this ordinary intoxication passes away, the drunkard suffers the reverse of the coin, the hangover. His intoxication is inescapably temporary, for a limit is set to it by the conditions of the world, the depth of his pocket, and the resilience of his constitution. Now, a must who is God intoxicated experiences just that same sensation that a drunkard enjoys, and cares for no one or and nothing in proportion to the extent of his intoxication. The difference is that his intoxication is continual, that it may increase but can never decrease, and it has no physical or mental reaction. It is a state of permanent and unalloyed intoxication. The principal sensation of a must is this permanent enjoyment of divine intoxication. He may, however, in inverse proportion to the extent of his intoxication, be also vaguely aware of the particular spiritual plane he is on, but he pays little heed to it, in the same way that a drunkard knows more or less what goes on around him, also in inverse proportion to the extent of his intoxication, but is not much interested in it, because his dominant sensation is that of enjoyment of his intoxication. A must may be on any plane. Number three, God absorbed. The characteristic of a God absorbed man is that, whether asleep or awake, and irrespective of his outer behavior, he is continually and without effort absorbed in thinking about God. He is, however, thinking of God without normally being conscious of doing so, in the same way that a man breathes night and day and is unaware of it, unless he gets out of the breath by some unusual exertion. Now, just as a man becomes conscious of breathing fast and deep when he is unexpectedly compelled to exert himself, so also a God-absorbed man, when he is interrupted in the unconscious absorption of his thoughts about God, becomes for a moment consciously aware of his absorption because its regular rhythm has been broken. The mind of a God absorbed man functions in the same way as that of a normal man, and though he is spiritually advanced, he is not necessarily aware of it himself, except in rare flashes. The majority of God absorbed men are on the first three planes, and a few are on the fifth plane. They jump over the fourth plane. When a God absorbed man reaches the fifth plane, he then becomes a must, that is, God intoxicated, and the remainder of his spiritual progress is completed as a must. Thus, a God absorbed man is usually no one of the first three planes. Uh, Thus, a God absorbed man is usually on one of the first three planes and may, in rare cases, be on the fifth plane. Number four, God communed. This type of aspirant is one who, like the God absorbed, thinks of God, but does so only by conscious effort. His concentration on God is neither an unconscious nor a perpetual state, but is dependent on an effort of the will, which subjects his communion with God to frequent fluctuations and tends to make his progress on the path less direct than that of a God absorbed man. The God absorbed man flies fast and straight like a swan, but the God communed flits here and there like a sparrow and is constantly diverted by irrelevant attractions. This communion process is essentially applicable to Raja Yogis and Jnana Yogis and to those whom Baba calls initiate, advanced, and depth pilgrims, whose characteristics are defined in the later pages of this chapter. The God communed man, if he stays on that path, as he generally does, never advances beyond the sixth plane. Number five, God mad. In the eyes of the average man, there may appear to be little difference between an ordinary lunatic and a God mad man. But from the spiritual aspect, there is a wide gulf between them. The mind of an ordinary God mad man has failed to adapt itself to the problems of the material world and has fled permanently into the realm of make believe to escape an intolerable material situation. But a God mad man, although he has lost the balance of his mind and the insight into his abnormal state, has not come to this condition by failing to solve his worldly troubles, but has lost his sanity through continually thinking about God. Although he is mad, he is impelled by high desires, and in spite of earning to tangible profit from majority of his delusions, he nevertheless enjoys his state of God madness. Baba divides these God mad men into three subtypes. A, those whose mind become unbalanced by an unceasing reiteration of thoughts about God and the spiritual path. They read, talk, and think of God at the expense of food and sleep until their minds break under this strain. B, those whose mind becomes paralyzed by coming into contact with the atmosphere of a highly advanced spiritual being. It is not an uncommon experience in that a few who come into contact with Baba himself sometimes exhibit temporary signs of this type of God madness. They are so uplifted by his contact that for days or weeks their minds are the victims of a state of temporary insanity. In certain rare instances, this state of God madness becomes permanent, particularly in cases where there is an unprepared or accidental contact with the spiritual atmosphere of a higher person. This state of God madness is called by the Sufis hal-e dawam, hal-e dawam. 3. C. Those who in Sufi words are called Uftada-e-rah, and in Vedantic language yoga brashta. When an aspirant seeks spiritual experience or undertakes a severe spiritual exercise, he may either outstrip the endurance of his mind or be suddenly deflected from his purpose by the eruption of a crisis in his physical environment. Either of these things may cause such turmoil in his mind that he becomes God mad. Such a man is known as Uftada-e-rah or Yoga Brashta and has fallen in the path before advancing further than the third plane. But his fall is temporary and his progress is resumed as soon as he takes a new body. So this last one I didn't understand very clearly. Those who in Sufi words called Uftada-e-rah and in Vedantic language Yoga Brashta, when an aspirant seeks spiritual experience or undertakes a severe spiritual exercise, he may either outstrip the endurance of his mind or be suddenly deflected from his purpose by the eruption of a crisis in his physical environment. Either of these things may cause such turmoil in his mind that he becomes God mad. Such a man is known as Uftada-e-rah or Yoga Brashta and has fallen in the path before advancing further than the third plane. But this fall is temporary and his progress is resumed as soon as he takes a new body. What is in my mind is whether they start using this power for other aspects in the mundane world, like miracles or other things. That is the hallmark of their becoming yoga prashta. That's what is in my mind.
Yeah,
The
or it
idea.
could be, see, the only hint here is eruption of a crisis in his physical environment. So something happens in the course, of his spiritual journey that makes him, again, to use a phrase, fallen in the path. And also, brashta means corrupted or
Yes.
lost or whatever, right? So I think anybody who loses their way, but not necessarily by the use of powers. I don't know. You have a pet at home, Mama?
To one of the buildings in the say, complex very near
Okay.
to our place.
Okay.
We have so far considered 5 types of spiritually advanced souls and have drawn a distinction between each type based upon their relationship to God or upon the method of their approach to God, and we shall now discuss the approximate equivalent terms for certain of these types in the mystical vocabulary of Islam. To begin with, all those on the spiritual path are termed Rahravan, singular Rahrav, and these Rahravan are dominated either by Zab, which means an overpowering quality, or by Saluk, which is the conscious natural quality of being aware of what they are doing and where they are going on the spiritual path. You've gone above, paragraph below. You just draw it. Oh, okay. The meaning of Jazab and Salub, given in this paragraph, are their spiritual significance as explained by Baba, and not their literal translations. Okay. The Rahab dominated by Jazab is called Mast, and a Rahab who treads the path with open eyes is called a Salik. A Mast and a Salik on the sixth plane are both in Barifat, God illuminated, God knowing, but a Mast and a Salik when entering the seventh plane are both Mazubs. This means that even a Salik, when he enters the seventh plane, is overpowered. The word Mazub means literally one who is under Jazab. And although the Jazab of all planes up to and including the sixth plane is limited, on the seventh plane it is unlimited and divine. The Sufi term of God merged is Mazub Allah. For a Mazub is the only one who is completely overpowered by Jazab.
Jasp. Jasp. So jasp is which means overpowering quality.
Overpowering quality.
But then overpowered by jasp. So literally one who is under jasp. Jasp means overpowering quality. And although the jasp of all planes up to and including the six planes is limited, on seven planes unlimited. Okay, please continue. Sorry.
When a Rahrav enters the seventh plane, he takes duality into unity. When he comes down again, he brings unity into duality. Now, if a Mazub of the seventh plane comes down to normal consciousness, he becomes one of the three things. One, a Salik, a Kamil, or Jivan Mukta, who has no circle and no duty, but can make one other soul spiritually like himself. A Salik, a Akmal, who establishes himself in the work of God and has no circle but has duty. Although he has no circle, he can make a few souls spiritually like himself. A Salik, a Mukamil or Kutub, who has duty and circle and can make as many souls as he wishes spiritually like himself. So this is a gradation. A Salik, a Kamil or Jivan Mukta has no circle and no duty, but can make one other soul spiritually like himself. A Salik, a Akmal, who establishes himself in the work of God and has no circle, but has duty. Although he has no circle, he can make a few souls spiritually like himself. A Salik, a Mukamil or Kutub, who has duty and a circle and can make as many souls as he wishes spiritually like himself. One should not assume that every advanced soul reaches this great goal of becoming merged in God. And to illustrate the utter rarity of God realization, Baba quotes the following line of Hakim Sanai. Baba translates this as follows: it needs many cycles for just one advanced soul to be realized. Bearing in mind, therefore, the extreme rarity of God realization, we then learn from Baba that very few of those who have being God intoxicated, that is, must throughout their line of spiritual progress come down again after being merged in God, but that the majority of those who began as God absorbed souls come down again after being merged in God and become either Salik Kamil, Salik Akmal, or Salik Mukamil. For those who are partly overpowered by Jazab, whom we have referred to earlier as the God intoxicated, the literal Sufi term is Mast Allah, and for practical purpose, we may shorten the term to Mast. Okay. Remember that a God-absorbed soul advances as such as far as the fifth plane and then becomes a must for the rest of his progress towards God, and that a God-communed soul never advances further than the sixth plane. God-communed soul never advances further than the sixth plane.
Hey, Jai Baba, uh,
Yes,
actually, for the mass to progress, you require the help of the perfect master after the fifth plane. There is
yes,
some reference to that, is what I remember.
yes. That's why this text made you stop there, and then you had the answer for that. That they
Correct.
need some support from a Sadguru,
Yes.
yes, master.
Jai Baba.
The God absorbed on any plane is a Salik, but the consciousness of his whereabouts on the path come only in flashes. He is not overpowered like a must, but is engrossed in his absorption in thoughts about God, so that he is not aware of much of what goes on about him. He is rather like a man writing a difficult essay who is so engrossed in his task that he is only vaguely conscious of his environment. The equivalent Sufi term for God absorbed soul is Mashgul Allah. The term for a God communed soul is Ma Allah, and he is a Salik on all planes up to and including the sixth plane. And he is a Salik on all planes up to and including the sixth plane. Now the Mashgul Allah and the Ma Allah, since they are both Saliks, may for practical purposes be bracketed together and designated like pilgrims. A God mad is literally Divana ye Allah, and for general usage there is the common term Divana ye Haq. So we may now draw up three columns of parallel terms. The first column showing Baba's 5 basic types of advanced souls, the second the literal Sufi equivalent, and the third the commonly accepted synonym or abbreviation. The original term God merged, God intoxicated, God absorbed, God communed, God mad. The literal Sufi equivalent will be Mazub Allah, Mast Allah, Mashgul Allah, Ma Allah, Divanai e Allah. Synonym for abbreviation, Mazub, must, a female must is generally known as a Mastani. 3 and 4, Salik like pilgrim. 5th is Divanai e Haq. So these are the synonyms or the different usage in different places by different people, I think. So it is structured by Baba into some clear understanding with all the backgrounds explained for each of the stages. Now the Sufis have a breadth of nomenclature. Yes.
Now, I'm saying this is really good for for people to understand the different correlations in the terms, and
Yes, yes,
probably our friend Karthik can put it into a slide or for the newcomers.
yes.
This is my suggestion.
No, before we leave that slide, we may have to, I think, refer to the, say, God Speaks charts and other things, and then make relevant presentation so that everything falls into the clear structure.
Yes, yes,
So we should
definitely,
not get
definitely.
confused later with these terms.
Yes, yes. No, but for a newcomer, for a
Yes,
person who's not just been introduced to Baba's world, this will help, I think. Anyway,
yes, yes,
I leave it for, I leave it for thinking. Okay, Baba.
yes. Now the Sufis have a breadth of nomenclature and an overlapping and interweaving of terms that one not conversant with their vocabulary may, in his impatience, be tempted to dismiss as irrelevant and confusing. But they will, I think, repay a few minutes of patient study. A wali, for example, may be on the fifth, sixth, or seventh plane, and he may be God merged, God intoxicated, God absorbed. The term Bali is only applicable to the God commune in the rare instance when he is on the fifth or sixth plane. Now, a must, although he is never truly God absorbed like a Salik like pilgrim, and never truly God merged like a Mazub, may take on certain of the characteristics of a Salik like pilgrim or a Mazub. And for these, Baba has given the terms Salik like and Mazub like must. In the supplement, a number of musts are described as having either of these characteristics, and these two terms are important for this. Karthik, you need to move it. Okay. Reasons. A Salik like must, although his salient characteristic is God intoxication, has the attribute of a Salik that he is conscious to a certain extent of his physical environment and to a certain extent of the spiritual plane on which he is situated. A Mazub like must, who incidentally is a rare type, has the salient characteristics of God intoxication and has also the attribute of the true Mazub of seventh plane that he is to a greater or lesser extent merged in God according to the degree of his advancement. Concerning this state, Baba quotes Hafiz, who says that if the divine intoxication of such a Mazub like must overpowers him, he becomes a real Mazub. But that is very rare, very rare. That is very rare. The exact couplet referred to is the following, which I cannot read. Okay. Baba translates this in the following way. Hafiz is afraid that he will be drowned in the divine ocean due to this intoxication that is in his head tonight. Hafiz is afraid that he will be drowned in the divine ocean due to this intoxication that is in his head tonight. A true Masub, a God merged soul on the seventh plane, is, as we have already seen, a Wali, and also in the sense that he enjoys the blissful intoxication of a God united soul. He is also a must. This is rather like the case of one who, being a master of arts is automatically also a matriculate. A mazub, however, although he is automatically both a wali and a must, is never a salik. Baba summarizes this in Sufi terms by saying that in the mazubiyat of the seventh plane, waliyat and masti are always there, but not saluk. In other words, the state of majub includes the state of wali and a must, but not that of a salik. Okay. There are two other There are two other terms used to designate two types of God-realized soul. The first, Ghaus, and the second, Kutub. Now, just as there are some Mas who have certain qualities of a Mazub or of a Salik, so there are a very few Mas who have the qualities of a Ghaus. Such Mas are termed Ghaus-like and are able to disconnect their limbs from their bodies when in a certain state of consciousness. Baba describes these Mas as having a peculiar light springing way of walking rather than that of a deer. Such Mas are fond of lonely places because with this characteristic of separating the parts of their body, they prefer to remain hidden from the eyes of the ordinary men. This type of ghost-like must is described in Sufi and Vedantic books. For example, see the supplement Abdul Qadir Jilani of Tanjore, Munshi of Burhanpur, and Chabeli Shah of Chapra. There is only one Kutub-like must, and he is Rawalpindi. He is in Rawalpindi, known there as Naga Shah Mastan. See supplement. Naga Shah Mastan. See supplement. Okay.
So do
Now
you
the
want to see the supplement now? So we have four references: Abdul Qadir Jilani of Tanjore, Munshi of Burhanpur, Chambeli Shah of Chapra, and then we have Nanga Shah Mastan. So I have
and
the
if I am not wrong, there are certain anecdotes in Shirdi Sai Baba's life
yes,
history
exactly.
also.
I was reminded of
Yes,
that as well. So here is the supplement.
yes.
Uh, yeah, there's no Abdul Qadir.
Somewhere else it may be. Oh, no.
Yeah, actually, he's not there. Abdul Ghani, Haq, Baba, Abdul Qadir. Yeah, this is Chambeli Shah. This one, Syed Abdul Qadir. Nothing
Got it.
special. But then there's nothing there. Nothing special. Abdul Khalik Mastan. Okay, we'll just read Chambeli, which we saw.
Okay.
What was the next name? Munshi.
Munshi of Rampur.
Yeah, Burhanpur Munshi. Kaka and Jalbhai went to Burhanpur in March 1939 to try to bring Mas for Baba's ashram in Jabalpur. This Munshi is a man of middle height and middle age. He's slightly stout, naked except for a lungi, and has a pleasing face and a short beard. Kaka met him first in a restaurant in Burhanpur, and Munshi gave him some food and asked both Jal and Kaka where they had come from. They told him from Jabalpur, and he replied that he too had just come from there. Kaka believed this to mean that he has the reputation in Burhanpur of being a Gauss-like must, but he is not in fact, of that state, nor so great a must as Munshi described above. Okay, so must, here also there is a reference to the must, the ghost state.
Ghost.
Okay, then we had one more, right? Munshi Chambeli Shah. Yeah. He is a fifth plane must in a ghost-like state. He has a peculiar springing gait as he walks. That is to say, he bobs his body up and down in an agile way. And Baba explained that his gait was typical of a ghost-like must. Abdul Qadir Jilani of Tanjore, who is also a ghost-like must, walks in this way too. Chambeli Shah lives in the prostitutes' quarter of Chapra and runs away from everyone who approaches him. There was this difficulty when Baba wished to contact him until someone explained that he was very fond of chewing tobacco and lime. A handful of this was brought, and when he saw it, Chambeli Shah was tempted to approach and so was contacted. This happened in 1942 March in Chapra. Chapra is in Bihar. And if you want the map, we can actually see it on the map as well. Okay, anyway, we'll come back to that. Last name, Nanga Shah Mastan. Yeah, this is 1941, December 31st. This is Allahabad. A naked sadhu whom one might believe to be a must, but who is in fact an advanced pilgrim. Baba said that he was on the fourth plane. He walked with his eyes turned upwards so that only the whites could be seen, and it was a puzzle how he managed to walk like this without colliding with people and objects. This contact was at the time of the Kumbh Mela in December 1941. Kaka arranged for Baba to sit with Nanga Mast in an empty tent at the Kumbh Mela, and after about half an hour, he crawled out unexpectedly from under the side of the tent and walked away. His conversation was irrational. Baba said of him that he was a big saint. Wow. Fascinating. Okay, we are back here.
Okay, there is only one Kutub like Mas, and he is in Rawalpindi, known as the Nagasha Mastan. Now, the principal work of Meher Baba has been with God merged and God intoxicated souls, with a secondary emphasis on God absorbed, God communed, and God mad. Of the God merged souls, there are but two in India, Chacha of Ajmer and Baba Shahabuddin of Bhatt. See supplement. Okay. Besides these two God merged souls, there is one seventh plane Salik, a Kamil or Jivan Mukta in the state of Turiya Avastha, a man known as Ishwar Das Swami of Yadgiri. See supplement. Yadgiri. Okay. Each of these three has been contacted by Baba. I think we will be coming back to these people later in the text, I think. Then we will be.
So here Baba mentioned about only couple of musts, right? But
Yes.
those days, I remember there were many sons and many like not Sadguru, many sons were there, like Swami Samartha, Gajanan Maharaj. There are many must or many gurus was there. So
Yes.
was Baba had any thought on this one on the same time, because that was same time for the Swami Samartha, Gajanan Maharaj. Many people are still like following them. So any thought Baba said anything about them or anywhere? Because I didn't read anywhere like Baba is talking about apart from must about any other sons or something like that.
No, I think if I am not mistaken, there is some reference to Swami Samarth somewhere in Baba literature.
Okay. Okay.
Apart from that, I don't remember anything else.
Yeah, I think I don't remember Swami Samar being referred, but maybe you have a point. We can look it up on Lord Meher.
Yes,
Lord Meher is the best place to research that. But
yes,
I think the broader response to you, Ashish, is that um, it, the definitive list of musts are in this book, right?
Yes.
Anything
Yeah. Yeah.
else Baba has mentioned is, I mean, he has mentioned a few names. He has, in fact, as is the case then, it is the case even now, right? There are many people who claim to be saints as
Yes.
we
Yes.
speak.
Definitely.
Right. So, but Baba has only referred to very few of them and given them, given their spiritual status or explained their importance. Very few people. Okay.
Hey, Baba. Uh, Ashish, I just want to suggest that you can look at chart 11 of the God Speaks. That gives a structure, and in that you can fit in these names. So it will give you
yes.
a sort of a, you know, a, a hierarchy or a structure, and then you can put in that.
Yes, yes.
Uh, chart 11 on God Speaks last page on the hardcover. Okay, Baba.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'll read it once again. Now, the principal work of Meher Baba has been with God merged and God intoxicated souls. So that is the classification here, with a secondary emphasis on God absorbed, God commune, and God man. So the next three levels he has not given much emphasis, and he has worked more with God merged and God intoxicated souls. That may give an answer to your question also, Ashish. Of the God merged souls, there are but two in India, Chacha of Ajmer and Baba Shahabuddin of Bhatt. Besides these two God merged souls, there is one seventh plane Salik Kamil or Jivan Mukta in the state of Turiya Avastha, a man known as Ishwar Das Swami of Yadgiri. Each of these three have been contacted by Baba. If we exclude these three God realized souls, the most important part of Baba's work has been with us and for the practical purpose of helping us to understand these God intoxicated souls more clearly. Baba has subdivided them principally according to their external characteristics into eight different types of mus. There are eight types of mus, of which five have special names, the remaining three being without any special term to distinguish them are known by the numbers that precede the description of their characteristics. Number one, probably Jalali, type 1, a fairly common type. A Jalali must is always hot tempered, abusive to others, and talks at random. He is restless and beats those who come near him. He is almost always dressed in rags and lives in an environment of filth and squalor. By day, he occasionally roams hither and thither, and at night, although he rarely sleeps, he lies down usually in a particular place. When awake, he prefers to recline in a half lying posture and occasionally rest his head on one hand. He has a habit of constantly moving his fingers and toes to and fro, has a passion for tea, and is moderately fond of tobacco. This is the Jalali picture. Continuing, he never asks for gifts except tea and tobacco. If given clothes, money, and so forth, he at once throws them away. And though he accepts food when hungry, he may throw it away if not hungry. He is happy in crowded streets and bazaars and sometimes enjoys the company of dogs. The presence of small children annoys him. Okay, these are the characteristics of a Jalali. Example of a typical Jalali mast, Nanga Baba of Peshawar. Okay. The next characteristic is Jamali. Type 2, a fairly common type, this also. A Jamali must is always mild-tempered and he never abuses or beats others. He speaks often in riddles and often at random. At night, he almost always remains in a particular place and by day rarely moves about, doing so only when absolutely necessary. When a Jamali must sits down, he prefers to be on something raised from the ground so that his legs dangle. He typically moves his fingers and hands most of the time and occasionally makes signs in one or the other of his fingers on the ground, on some convenient part of his body, such as his thigh, or on any object to hand. On any object to hand. He has a passion for tobacco and is moderately fond of tea. He never asks for anything from anyone except tea and tobacco, but if given anything, he keeps it. His favorite environment is a room and he loves music. Examples of this typical Jamali Mas, Ali Shah of Ahmednagar, see chapter 2. Okay. So only major difference is that he doesn't shout, he doesn't say dissuade people. And
Correct. He's
that is
mild mannered
a
and
major
he's more
difference.
social. Yeah.
Always a mild tempered and he never abuses or beats others. Okay.
Correct.
Something went wrong. They are trying to get you back into meeting.
Hello.
ಹಲೋ
Hello.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನಾನು ನಟರಂಗದಿಂದ
You're on
ಪದ್ಮಕಲಾ
a call?
ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇದು ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ.
Okay, I'll continue. Mahboobi, type 3, moderately rare type. A Mahboobi must invariably wear some article of feminine attire, such as a few bangles, a ring on his finger, earrings, or an old choli, a kind of bodice. He is not effeminate and does not wear a sari, which, if we exclude women, is often worn by eunuchs, the disreputable inverts who wander about in groups and earn a living by singing and dancing. A Mahboobi must is always cheerful, and though he sometimes talks at random, he never, in contradiction to a distinction to a Jamali must, speaks in riddles. He also never abuses or beats others. At night, he lies down in a fixed abode, but by day, he is restless and roams about. When he sits, he does so in an ordinary, comfortable position. He has no typical movements of the hand, fingers, or feet, but occasionally shrugs his shoulder. He loves pan and is moderately fond of tea. He may ask for anything from anyone, such as food, clothes, or money, and whatever is given to him, he either keeps entirely for himself or returns all or part of it to the giver. He likes to stay on a veranda and he's fond of dancing. So this is a Mahboobi. Example of a typical Mahboobi must, Sakhi Baba of Bahrej. See supplement. Okay. Ittifaki. So what are the types we have seen now? We have seen Jalali, Jamali, Mahboobi, and type 4 is Ittifaki. An Ittifaki is a must who, without any love or longing, becomes suddenly and accidentally intoxicated by divine love. Most Ittifaki musts wear iron rings on their arms or legs, and are covered with assorted pieces of iron here and there on their bodies. An ittifaqi is sometimes violent and at other times mild. And though he sleeps and eats in a fairly regular way, his conversation is seldom normal. By day, he moves about a little, but from dusk until late at night, he roams about constantly. When he sits, he does so in an awkward position. He occasionally makes wide, sweeping movements with his arms, rather like a policeman directing traffic, but in a less purposeful way. His tastes are not excessive for any particular thing, but he is partial to fruits and sweetmeats and is moderately fond of tea, tobacco, and pan. He never asks for anything from anyone except tea, tobacco, or pan, but whatever is given to him, he keeps for a short while and then throws or gives it away. If hungry, he will eat food given to him, and he is happy on the outskirts of a city. There's a note on pan. Pan is a masticatory prepared from diverse spices wrapped in the aromatic, glabrous, bright green cordate leaf of the beetle, piper beetle. The spices used vary, but always consist of areca nut parings, slaked lime, and sometimes tobacco. The contents are folded neatly in the leaf, which is often fastened by a single clove used as a pin, and the complete pan is then chewed. Interesting definition of pan. Right? Yeah. The specific characteristic of an ittifaqi that distinguishes him from other types is that he becomes a must accidentally, and because of this, very few ittifaqi must show all the traits described above. This is because the dominant mood or behavior of an ittifaqi at the very moment of becoming intoxicated by divine love colors all his subsequent behavior as a must. If, for example, he is angry at that moment, he will, as a must, have the attribute of the Jalali type that he will abuse and beat others. A glance at the following examples described in the supplement will make this clearer. Narayan Baba of Beaver, Sabbal Bua of Mandla, 90% typical Ittifaqi. Narayan Baba is 100% typical Ittifaqi. Lohewala Baba of Chanda, a 75% typical Ittifaqi. Madar Zad, type 5. A Madar Zad who is born a must. He appears to be an ordinary madman, is most of the time naked, and commonly roams about in dirty and muddy places. His tastes in food are abnormal, and he will eat even raw flesh. He's a very restless fellow, wanders about by night and by day, and seldom sits down or rests. He has no special gestures of his limbs, and he likes and dislikes everything according to his moods. He asks for anything from anyone and takes whatever is given to him, but throws it away at once, either just as it is or after destroying it. He will accept food when hungry. As far as his choice of environment and any sort of predilection are concerned, he is so capricious that everything and nothing may please or displease him by turns. Examples of Mother Zad musts. Danga Khan Mastan Peshawari of Rawalpindi, a high Mother Zad. Several moderate musts in Panipat. So these are the 6, 7, and 8 which don't have a name. Type 6, very rare type. In contradistinction to the hierarchy of science, there's no hierarchy of musts, but there is one class that has a fixed number. In this cycle of creation, there are 5 of this type, and in the beginning of each new cycle, there are 2 more. 3 of these special musts are in India, 1 is in Egypt, and 1 in Arabia. These 5 musts have the characteristics of all the 5 preceding types combined and are the highest of all the 8 types. Whenever one of the 5 dies, he is immediately replaced by a successor. The three in India that have been contacted by Baba are Bashar Mastan of Allahabad, Chup Shah of Pilhibit, Noor Shah of Kashmir, Chindlur. See the supplement for a description of these musts. No name, the seventh type. The musts of this type are also few but are not a fixed number. They have in exactly equal proportion the attributes of both Jalali and Jamali types. And although good musts are not in fact a very high type, for a pure Jalali and a pure Jamali are more advanced. These rare musts should not be confused with those who may be predominantly of one particular type and have also a few characteristics of one or other different types. The latter are frequently described in the supplement and are not uncommon. The only example of the seventh type of must contacted by Baba is Makhiwala Baba of Rajkot. Type 8 is the commonest type. This is the commonest and lowest type. He is half must and half god mad and has no particular characteristic by which he may be distinguished. Practically, all the musts whom Baba has contacted who are referred to in the supplement and elsewhere as of no special interest, moderate, nothing special, and so forth, are of this type. They constitute about 3/4 of all the musts contacted. So these are the 8 types of musts. I think there is merit in what Ashok said. I think putting this down in slide is useful. I don't know if I'll get the time to do it today, but Ashok, if you have the time, please do it as well, and you can put it up. Maybe we can stop at this point here and continue tomorrow. Any reactions, thoughts before we wrap up?
This is sort of mind blowing.
Absolutely. That is the reaction even in my head. Complicated.
Yes, so very say detailed literature, and what we thought was these people are say the general understanding before coming to Baba was these are all mad people. Okay, and later on to an extent with all my say searching in spirituality and other things, I thought they have some sort of a connection with God, and so they have lost contact with the normal duality here, and so they act differently. But this is such a great classification of levels and stages of progress in their spiritual path shown by Baba. So it becomes very, very interesting and intriguing also.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, the classifications are still confusing. I'm
Yes,
still not clear. And I think the other learning is probably we should read the supplement references as we encounter them,
yes, yes,
because I think they are not. That's it. I mean, you don't. We won't read the supplement fully, so we'll stop when we get to the supplement during the course of the read. So
yes.
maybe before we start tomorrow, all the ones that I'm underlining now, we will
Hmm.
read in the supplement and then continue.
Yes, yes. Because
Yeah.
we may not come back to that later anytime.
Exactly. We may miss a few of these guys.
And if we go through the supplement structure, we may find out something which may be having a general reading, which can take up in some form. Otherwise, these incidental and individual references, we have to finish off as we read the text itself.
I think so too. Perfect. So just as I think we did, yeah, up to here we did all of this. Yes. These are the ones I wanted. I was curious whether Yadgir is Yadavgiri. I don't know. Or
Yes,
Yadgir is also in Mysore, I mean
Yadgir
in
is in
Maharashtra.
Maharashtra or north of Karnataka. It's,
Okay, so we'll
Yadgir.
find out.
I have heard of this Yadgir in Karnataka itself.
Okay, let's just quickly see that. I'm curious as well. Army of Yadgir. So where is this? D5. And D5 will be where is the map?
Ah,
D5. So 5 and D. Yadgir is near Bijapur, you're right.
yes, yes.
So that's where Ishwar Das Swami, and he's a Gauss, right? What was he? God. Kutub like Masts. I thought he was Gauss. Seventh plane Saleh. I think we should immediately read off the supplements. There's too many musts we are dealing with.
Yes.
Anyway, we'll read this. We'll start with a reference to today. And Ashok, if you're able to get to putting the slide, please help and share it.
Actually, I'll have to re-listen to the recording.
Sure.
As I told you, my sincere
You
apologies to
jumped out.
Baba,
Yeah,
all of you. I was not very.
I know. Not a problem.
I'll read this or I'll re-listen to this again, or
Sure.
maybe if we can revisit this tomorrow.
Done. ठीक है.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody have a good Saturday and see you all tomorrow. Jai Baba. I know
Jai Baba.
Ashish,
Jai
you are
Baba.
still in Friday. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Jai
Jai Baba.
Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Baba ki jai.
All right.